Sure. Senator.
Hello, how are you, Congressman?
DioGuardi, we've brushed by each other a lot, but we haven't quite done anything like this. But thank you for coming.
Thank you. My wife,
Nadine. Thank you.
Hello, Shirley.
Shirley,
How are you?
DioGuardi, so great
Thank
to
you
see
for all
you.
your help as well.
Thank you.
I heard you were quite a
Pleasure
just
beginning
with you.
You've
been Nadine, very nice to
years,
meet
I did
you.
5
Really.
years before that as a
Great.
congressman.
Senator
And this is Batan, graduate of Harvard, Albanian, and just got his doctorate.
And has worked with us
Born in
for
Kosovo.
20 years.
Thank you for
Oh,
coming.
great.
Yeah.
Great. How are you?
Doug and his wife, Bob, they flew in from Florida for today.
My wife, Nadine.
Over here with us.
Okay.
Okay. Senator, you're going to be right here.
Okay.
We started many years ago with Senator Dole and Senator Pell and Senator Biden, 1991, when he was, I think, no, that was when Claiborne Pell was the chairman. And Claiborne Pell then allowed his junior senator to conduct that meeting in 91 when everybody was shocked they didn't know Kosovo. They didn't know Kosovo in the U.S. Senate. Would you believe it? And that's the issue with Albanians. They've been buried in a state called Yugoslavia, which is mainly dominated by Slavs. We have nothing against Slavs or Greeks, but they have differences. And you, as one of the most powerful men in Washington, need to know those differences. And we got to figure out how we bring those people together so that Southeast Europe becomes part of the European Union. At peace, whole, and democratic. And that's what I've been working for as a congressman and now as a volunteer advocate and my wife for the Albanian people. When I got to Congress, nobody knew my family spoke Albanian as well as Italian. And when Albanians found out by accident, they lobbied me day and night, places I never heard of. And I had to immediately become the de facto spokesman for the Albanian people. And this is 35 years later. You can see it. And they're from not just Kosovo, they're from Albania, they're from Macedonia, they're from Montenegro, they're from Preševa. I don't know if anybody's from Greece here, but we have a lot of Albanians living in that area too. I'm so delighted that you were able to come and fit this into your schedule, because this is going to add a new dimension to your life. You have no idea the story of the Albanian people. Fellas, one thing that I don't think the senator knows is that if you look at the Balkans, and you look at the other side of Italy, the Illyrian Peninsula, that's a couple of thousand years ago, it was the Albanians that got there 10,000 years ago from northwest Europe. The Greeks only got there from Carthage, 2500 BC. Albanians were already there. But the stuff that's gone on in between is so incredible, and some of it you're going to hear. But we're not looking to redo anything by history. We're looking to do everything by what's right, what's fair. Can we make a viable state from Kosovo, for instance? It took us many years to get it recognized, but yet you've got 5 countries, and 2 of them you know, Greece and Cyprus, have not recognized it. There's no reason for that. And there are 3 others, and that's what Shirley and I have to bring to your attention, because somehow, I'm not going to use, well, I'll say it. You can become a lobbyist now for the Kosovo by going to your friends, and I know you have many good Greek friends, to say, why haven't you guys, at least recognized the state when George W. Bush, a Republican president, was the first one to recognize it in 2008, after Shirley and I worked 20 years to get it positioned for that. So, well, we're so delighted to have you here. Now, I just wanted to say who you're following, and then we can start this. Senator Dole was the first one I went to. First resolution was June 1986. Before I got to Congress, I was very active with Italian Americans. And I went to give speeches down there, and I got to know him. So when this issue came up, I went to him. I said, Dante, I know you used to be on government affairs and things, but now you're chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House. We need you. Joe, what should I do? You have to go to the State Department, because they don't seem to like, Albanians for some reason. They're favoring Yugoslavia. Comes back to me and says, Joe, you know what they told me? You're a troublemaker. Yes, just like John Lewis, but I make good trouble. I'm trying to alert people that you need to know the facts. Some are difficult to swallow. That was Dante Fascell. He enabled the first hearing for the Albanian people because I begged him to do it, and that was 1987. I was still a congressman at the time. And then Tom Lantos, who can forget him? Tom Lantos founded and co-chaired the Congressional Human Rights Committee. He conducted a 5-hour hearing in the Senate side. There wasn't a room big enough on the House side for the issue of Albanian self-determination. And that's at a time when Milosevic already started genocide in Srebrenica and also in Kosovo. Then you have, I'm going to run through these, Henry Hyde, Ben Gilman, Senator Pressler, Senator Pell, Senator Biden, then he became vice president and now president, and Ileana Ross-Layton, fellow Cuban American, right? And by the way, you met, this is Doug Sirachi and his wife. They have a factory in Palm Beach, is it Palm Beach or Jupiter? Yeah, 45 Cuban Americans reside in that factory. I went down to see. Isn't that beautiful? Now the Albanians are giving jobs for other people. We need those jobs too, not here, but in Kosovo. Can you believe that Albanians don't have the visa ability to go around Europe? They send them to Turkey, but because they're not in the Schengen, they cannot go to Western Europe. That's another thing that you're going to hear tonight, I'm sure. Okay, with that, and then you have Ileana and then Ed Royce. So you are following a long line of very good people that helped us make our case at various levels in the government, House and Senate. God bless you. Thank you for coming. With that, Shirley, here's my very competent wife, she was a publisher when I met her, a book publisher, publishing a book on Yugoslavia's ethnic nightmare. That's right. And when I found that out, I took her to an Albanian restaurant for dinner. We got to know each other, and I got her to publish that book even sooner. But I just want you to know that the Albanians have a new name for her.
Hi, everybody.
The Albanians now know her as Shota Galica.
Merdita.
Very tough Albanian woman. When her husband died, she put on all the bullets and she went ahead to finish the war. Okay.
Welcome, Senator. Welcome, Nadine. We're so pleased. I've been noticing in the past few weeks in the New York Times, and I don't know whether anyone else has, how often you have been mentioned for being the son of an immigrant and what you're now doing to make sure, ultimately, that undocumented immigrants are finally accepted in the United States. I mean, that is way ahead of most of our government. Absolutely everyone in this room is an immigrant and either came here with their parents or as children, almost everybody, and from all of the Albanian lands that Joe mentioned to you. Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, the Preševa Valley in southern Serbia, and Shamria in northern Greece. The tragedy is that everyone here and their parents and their grandparents, they had to escape, you probably know about this, either communism under 50 years of one of the worst communist governments in Albania, or they had to escape the war in Kosovo, and that's only in the 1990s. So we're talking about a very, very recent time in all of our lives. You already had joined Congress in '93. What I want to say is that even though everyone here has achieved the American dream, no question, and we all hold the United States in high esteem, at the same time, we are now faced with the unresolution of the Balkan conflict and the unresolution specifically of the conflict between Serbia and Kosovo. And now we're in danger. We actually now have, unfortunately, Serbs at the border potentially threatening war, even though I don't think they will actually go through with this. But it's a critical time. So what I want to say is that we are so pleased that you are now chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. You have the power, in my opinion, and I think everyone would agree with me, to do the following. You have the power, I'm not trying to say that you will solve it, but you have the power to impact that resolution between Serbia and Kosovo. You have the power to, especially to encourage Greece to recognize Kosovo, and Greece is one of 5 nations you may know that have not yet recognized Kosovo as an independent state, so it's an independent name only. You have the power to tell Europe that the U.S. is not just going to sit on the back seat. I don't know whether you know that Europe has been pressing that, and as much as we appreciate much of Europe, that will definitely not work. The other and last thing I want to say, this is so important now because it's an issue that very few people are paying attention to, and it's only been in the last 2 years, and that is there's the incursion of Russia and China into the Western Balkans. And if that were to continue at the rate it's continuing, we're going to be living in a very different world. So with that, we very much look forward to hearing now everything that you have to share with us. And thank you also for offering to do some question and answers with our audience after that and our friends and supporters.
Thank you. Thank Congressman DioGuardi for inviting us and bringing us together. Let me thank Shirley, who in her own right is a force and was part of this bringing us all together, so we greatly appreciate it. And the Congressman's passion on this issue is very vivid. You can see it. So actually, this is the first time that I had a chance to meet the Congressman in a more personal way. So it's very obvious that this is something that he has a great commitment to, so I appreciate that. I appreciate him and Shirley bringing us all together. I appreciate the Albanian American PAC and the Civic Association also all being part of today's event. And my wife Nadine and I are very happy to be here with all of you. Nadine is originally from Lebanon, so she understands the challenges of people having to flee to come to another country. Before I speak about these issues that you care about so passionately directly, let me, since I think this is the first time many of us have met, give you a little sense of who I am, where I came from, because it tells you what I'm about. My parents were refugees from Cuba, political refugees. They came to this country, my mother particularly, came to this country in search of freedom and an opportunity where I was born. I grew up poor in a tenement in Union City, the first in my family to go to college and then go to law school. And if you told me at that part of my life that I could rise to be one of 100 United States senators in a country of 320 million people, I would have said, that's not going to happen. But it is the promise of America fulfilled. It is a promise that I fight to keep true for future generations of Americans. And so that is a big part of who I am and what drives me. I am privileged in the United States Senate to have various committee assignments that give me the breadth and scope of so many things that New Jerseyans care about and that Americans care about. I sit on the Senate Finance Committee, which is probably one of the most significant committees of the Senate, because anything that needs a revenue source for something we want to do in the government has to go through the Finance Committee. It deals with all tax policy, all trade policy, all questions on health care, the IRS, the control of the currency, and so much more. So it's a very pervasive element where I fight to make sure that New Jerseyans and middle-class families can continue to achieve their own personal dreams and aspirations and do it equitably at the end of the day. I sit on the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, which deals with all of our financial institutions, all of the regulatory agencies that see those financial institutions, all of the major banks and insurance companies, but also how do we deal with preserving home ownership as a critical element of the American dream. For most families, a home is the single biggest asset that they will have in their lives. And how do we create greater access to companies to be able to grow, create jobs, and ultimately create prosperity for more people. And then finally, the one that I have the greatest passion for, because of my family history, is the privilege I have of chairing the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, one of the oldest, most revered committees in the Senate, which deals with our relationships across the world, both bilaterally and in multilateral institutions like the United Nations, the Organization of American States, NATO, and so much more. Where my work is to try to create a world in which the United States finds more allies and less enemies, that we seek to join in common cause with countries that have the same values that we do, and at the same time create a world that is more peaceful and more prosperous, where we are less likely to have to send our sons and daughters into war. And so that is an enormous agenda in and of itself. Which then brings me to what you care about the most, obviously, which is Kosovo and the challenges there. I remain deeply concerned about the lack of progress in the talks between Serbia and Kosovo. I think and I don't say this as a partisan, those of you who may know about my foreign policy, I have disagreed when Obama was in office. I disagreed with him on Iran and paid a significant price for it. And when President Trump was in office, I disagreed with him on various policies. And even now, I just had a hearing on Afghanistan. So when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, I am interested in what is in the national interest and security of the United States, and wherever that leads, that's what I follow. And in the Trump administration, unfortunately, their emphasis was all on Kosovo and in the pressure on Kosovo, but nothing on Serbia, nothing on Belgrade. And that created real consequences at the end of the day. And I certainly do not believe that among the things that are being talked about, that there should be land swaps between Kosovo and Serbia. And the last thing I think we should be doing is establishing enclaves of, as suggested by the Association of Serbian Municipalities. That is a recipe for disaster at the end of the day. I've received from the President the nomination of Jeff Hovenre, who is a career person, is very familiar with the region, to be the ambassador to Kosovo. He has deep experience in the region. He even attended the Rambouillet talks in France when they took place. So here's someone who knows. And it is my hope that we will have him before the committee for his confirmation hearing in the next 2 weeks. And assuming that everything goes well in that hearing, we will be able to get him up for a vote in the committee and then a vote on the Senate floor, so we can have a U.S. ambassador in Kosovo, because that's one of the strongest ways that we can promote our views. I'm very concerned about rights of those minorities in the Preševa Valley in Serbia. I understand that our ambassador there traveled prior to the COVID lockdown last year and met with local leaders. Albanian children should be able to read school books in their language. Albanians should be able to see voting materials in their language. These are just common sense elements of a pathway forward. And my Foreign Relations Committee staff, the person who is in charge, Congressman, of my Foreign Relations Committee's work on Europe, which of course would include this, Damian Murphy. Well, Damian Murphy's just been elevated to be the staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So you'll have a very good person to work with. He was on the phone with the State Department on this very issue last week, and urging that the ambassador make another trip down there as soon as circumstances permit. The bottom line is, Shirley suggested that the United States needs to be engaged, and yes, we understand this is Europe. We understand the European Union's interests as part of the European continent, but we do not believe that the United States should sit passively by. There is a constructive way for the United States to be engaged, and we need to be engaged in that constructive way. Kosovo is one of the closest allies that we have had. there for some time, and the United States shouldn't take a back seat at the end of the day. I mentioned this by So these are just some of the views that I have, and I look forward, as I do in engagement with so many people from the state. We are very privileged to have people from around the world who have made New Jersey home, and in doing so have enriched our state, and in my view have enriched our nation. And of course, a part of my great experience over 30 years of being in the United States Congress, between first the House of Representatives, where I served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and then for the last 16 years in the Senate, serving on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, is the ability to meet the diaspora of individuals from different countries who understand vividly what is happening in that country, who understand the challenges and also the opportunities that we can achieve together. And so you have my hand in friendship and the power of my office to make it a better day for Kosovo and for all of us. Thank you very much.